Hello, my name's Brooks Welch, and I'll be your host for this little episode. Now, I got a question for you. World War II. What do you think of whenever you hear that phrase? You probably think something along the lines of the Axis powers, Hitler, Pearl Harbor, the atomic bomb, and the Holocaust, right? Well, we all know about the Holocaust and the atrocities that were committed during the Holocaust. But there isn't always bad within the Holocaust. Sometimes there were heroes. And that's our story today. His name, Oskar Schindler. And this is what he did in spite of his personality.
Oskar was born on April 28, 1908 in Svitavia, Czechoslovakia. He was the oldest of two, born to a farm machinery manufacturer located in Sudetenland and on the border of Bohemia in what is now the Czech Republic. Even though he was born in Czechoslovakia, his family was ethnically German. And as he matured, he took some interesting jobs to start off, like running a driving school and enlisting for a stint in the Czechoslovakian army. And Schindler briefly lived in Berlin before returning to Czechoslovakia and ended up giving poultry a try, which he ended up abandoning.
In 1935, Oskar joined the pro-Nazi party called Sudene Deutsche Partei, where he collected counterintelligence for the German Military Intelligence Agency. But in 1938, the Czech Republic authorities arrested him on charges of espionage, which is the practice of using spies in military warfare to gain intelligence. He was sentenced to death, but after the annexation of the Sudetenland by Germany, he was pardoned by the Reichs and rose through power in the German intel agency. His application to be officially in the Nazi Party, submitted as supposed pragmatism, was accepted in 1939, the same year Germany invaded Poland. Schindler then journeyed to Krakow, Poland, where, with his connection and liberal bribes, secured a lease for a formerly Jewish-owned enamelware factory.
Once he had the factory for about 3 months, he had several hundred employees, 7 of which were Jewish, and by 1942, almost half of the employees at the plant were Jewish, and he used them for cheap labor to make money for the SS. By fall of that year, the Plazau work camp opened nearby his camp and was run by the notorious sadistic SS officer, Amon Goth. He had a liking to luxurious items on the black market, which Schindler used to make a friendship with Amon, to make a different camp for his workers, one free of the abuse of Plazau.
1 year later, in 1944, Schindler's original factory was decommissioned by the Nazi Party, though he did get a position to be moved to Berneck in the Sudetenland, which was where he originally lived. He did get a list of essential Jews that were a part of the factory. So while they were being held, though, some did go to concentration camps for a bit, but Schindler interfered with those because of his connections and actually got about 700 men and 200 women to his factory, along with 100 others along the way from abandoned cattle cars and from other Nazi concentration camps. His new factory, though, instead of what it originally was now a munitions factory that was making munitions that were doomed to fail. And that's what they did until the end of the war. They did a final head count whenever it was all said and done, and the final head count was 1,098 Jews that he had saved from the Nazis.
Oskar Schindler died on October 9, 1974, and was buried on Mount Zion in Jerusalem. In remembrance of his valiant work to save the Jews, a book called Schindler's Ark by Thomas Keneally was written and published in 1984. And on June 24, 1993, Yad Vashem, recognized Oskar Schindler as righteous among the nations for his efforts to save the Jews. Oscar's decisions early on might have been questionable, but in the end, his true motive saved over 1,000 lives. And that's just one of the many stories of heroes in the Holocaust who fought against the Nazis, risking their lives for what they saw right. And that's the story of Oskar Schindler, a man with questionable decisions, but the right motive.